What's up guys, this is a special video where I'm going to talk you through all the films that I've watched in 2019 so far. So this year I've done something different from what I usually do, in that I've made a note of every single film that I've watched this year so far. And it's all here on my phone. Some of them I reviewed for my channel, I'll briefly go over them. Some of them I haven't reviewed at all, so these will be complete unique thoughts from me for the first time. So, hope you enjoy it. First up, BlackkKlansman. BlackkKlansman, a very powerful and important film set in the 70s about a African American police officer who goes undercover in the Ku Klux Klan. How does that happen, you say? That's a bit preposterous. Well, it happens over the phone, basically. And the whole premise is pretty funny. The film itself is surprisingly funny. It's a Spike Lee film, so it's yes, it's a Spike Lee film, but it's also one of the least Spike Lee-like films there is. Adam Driver's in there, he's great. The main character's great. Topher Grace is alright in there too. There is a surprising amount of comedy. It does address racial issues as you'd expect about a film about the Ku Klux Klan. It does a good job at addressing that. It does a good job towards the end of relating that to modern day events, and it's bizarre to think how relevant this all is still. And yeah, it really makes you think about just how stupid parts of the world are. So yeah, a really powerful film, a really important film. You should go watch that. Searching. So Searching takes place entirely on a computer screen, looking through social media and messenger and going on cameras and webcams and stuff like that. Basically, a father loses his daughter and he tries to track her down. It's a thriller with a unique perspective. I would call it the evolution of the found footage genre, and really well done, really unique. I don't think I've seen anything quite like it before. It's a thriller, so there are some surprises, there are some twists towards the end. Yeah, just a really enjoyable film, a really well done thriller with a good central storyline. Interesting lead character. John Cho's great in the lead role. So yeah, go check that out. Really unique film. Upgrade. So this is a science fiction film from Lee Wanell, who's responsible for the early Saw movies, the Insidious movies, and I believe The Conjuring as well. So firstly, you can totally tell he made this film. It has all the familiar elements from those movies, such as a twist ending. Basically, it's about a man who he and his wife in the near future get into a car accident. Basically, his wife is killed in this accident while he is left paralyzed. A billionaire comes along, plants an AI chip in the back of this man's neck, which then gives him the ability to walk and move again. But what the billionaire doesn't tell him is that this AI can then talk to the man. Why does the millionaire tell him this? Well, it turns out he doesn't know. I'm not going to go into much spoilers beyond this, but the main man then starts to communicate with this AI in the back of his neck, and he tries to get revenge on the people who killed his wife and caused them to be in this situation to begin with. That's the whole setup of this movie. I'm not going to say much more. There's a lot of great action in there, a lot of good use of comedy and humor in there. It is a near science fiction film, so there's some good science fiction elements in there too. Really fun, really enjoyable movie, and yeah, I do recommend that one. You might have a good time with it. Bird Box. Bird Box over on Netflix. It's a post-apocalyptic film starring Sandra Bullock. Two storylines going on here. Basically, the outbreak of the incident where there's some sort of alien creature that's arrived. If you look at it, it drives you mad and crazy, makes you want to commit suicide. And then there's a more future storyline where the world has ended and Sandra Bullock's basically trying to get to this what's supposed to be a sanctuary zone. And the problem is, these two storylines, one is way better than the original. Wait, one is way better than the other, and it's the Outbreak storyline that's way better and far more interesting. The majority of that takes place in a house with a bunch of survivors hunkered down trying to work out what's going on and how they're going to live. You've got John Malkovich in there, you've got, I think he's called BD Wong from Jurassic Park. I think that's his name, BD Wong. It sounds right. I'll look that up. But yeah, bunch of characters in there, not very well developed, I have to say. They are stereotypical. Sandra Bullock is the main star in this. She gets most of the attention. Yeah, it's a kind of typical post-apocalyptic thing. Doesn't do much that we haven't seen before. Similar to things like The Quiet Place and video games like The Last of Us. You never actually see what's causing these problems. That, I suppose, is a spoiler, I suppose, but that makes it even more scary, I think. So yeah, Bird Box, it's okay. If you like this genre, you probably like this, but it doesn't do anything all that different or unique. Crazy Rich Asians. Crazy Rich Asians about a couple who live in America who go back home to Singapore because there's a wedding going on. In the meantime, the woman in this relationship is being introduced to the guy's family. The family doesn't necessarily approve of this relationship because, well, they're crazy rich and she isn't. So, this is a by the books rom com. It is very good. I would say it's more romantic drama than comedy, though. There's some great performances in there. Michelle Yeoh's brilliant in it. Aquafina is hilarious. It's just a really good, really well done rom com. It does try to subvert your expectations towards the end. It tries to twist you around, thinking, oh, it's going to end way differently than what I thought. But no, then it twists back. So, Crazy Rich Asians, if you like the genre of rom coms, I think you're going to really like this. It's just a really well done, well made film. The Predator. Yeah, The Predator. The Predator is a fun action movie, fourth film in the Predator franchise, and not the best by any means. Full of really questionable comedy and humor. It's full of stereotypical one-note characters, big name actors in there though, who bring some sort of levity to them and some sort of depth to the characters. So yeah, it is exactly what you probably think it is. It's exactly what you probably want it to be. It's a fun action movie, full of gore, full of violence, and it's a man's movie as well. There's only really Olivia Munn is the only significant female character in there. You've got Yvonne Strahovski in there as well, who's really underutilized, and light spoilers, she just vanishes. Don't have a clue what happened to her character. She shows up once, and then she shows up again, then she runs away, never to be heard from again. And she's an important character as well, so that's really weird. Olivia Munn, meanwhile, she is a scientist who, as the film progresses, turns out she's geared up for combat. She's really capable of all this stuff. And this happens to quite a few characters where there's just elements about their person and that just aren't explained. There are things that just happen for the sake of them happening, and it's really odd and weird. So, yeah, this is a film that you will enjoy so long as you don't pay too much attention to it. Bad Times at the El Royale. Bad Times at the El Royale is a very Quentin Tarantino inspired movie. The problem is it's not as good as Quentin Tarantino's movies. So, it's about a bunch of dubious, odd, interesting individuals who all gather at this hotel in the middle of Nevada and California's border. So half of the hotel's in California, half of it's in Las Vegas. All these characters are here for shady reasons, which I won't get into. The whole point of the film is trying to work out why these characters are here, what they're doing, how they relate to each other, do they relate to each other. The pacing of the film is odd because it keeps jumping to flashbacks of certain things going on. I really don't want to say too much about this because that is the whole point of this film is trying to work out what it's about and who the characters are. So it's fine, it's okay. It's a little on the long side. I think it loses its way towards the end a little bit. There are certain elements of the story and the plot which the film just doesn't explain. It doesn't have to, but it would have been interesting to know some of these answers. But yeah, it's fine. What We Do in the Shadows. So What We Do in the Shadows is the one Taika Waititi film which I hadn't seen until now, and it's damn good. It's a mockumentary about vampires living in it's a mockumentary about vampires living in modern day New Zealand, and really funny. Taika Waititi has this great sense of humor. Jermaine Clement is in there as well. Very good acting. Very good look at the traits and characteristics of vampires, turning them on their head, looking at them, examining them. It does a good job of that. Pays homage to vampire films of the past, such as Nosferatu. And yeah, it's just really funny. Really funny. The One little issue I would say is the main storyline doesn't have all that much momentum. It's building up to this big party or event that's going to happen, a festival, I believe it's called. Yeah, it doesn't really have a big payoff towards the end, I don't think. But yeah, really good characters, really funny. That's the main thing you want to take away from this because it is a comedy. It is getting a TV show later this year. I think it's soon, in fact. Different characters, different actors, so I don't know how well that's going to work. I'm worried that the TV show might be too similar to the film, but I've heard good things about it so far. A Star is Born. Star is Born, a musical drama about a country singer who meets this aspiring singer. He helps her establish her career. She ends up going into pop music. They fall in love. It's a big romance thing. A lot of great music in there. Brilliant acting from Bradley Cooper and Lady Gaga. The film won an Academy Award for Best Song, and it's great music in there. It's just a really well done, really well made film. It's emotional at times. There's a big surprise towards the end, which I personally didn't see coming. Otherwise, this is a basic by the books drama film. You can see most of it before it happens. And yeah, I do recommend it. It's really good. Fisherman's Friends. Fisherman's Friends. I saw an early screen preview of this. It's a rom-com, kind of. On one hand, it's a rom-com. On one hand, it's a biopic about a band called Fisherman's Friend. They're a Cornish group who are fishermen by day and then singers of traditional Cornish folk music and sea shanties by well, no, I wouldn't say by night because they do sing during the day, but you get my point. So the problem is this film is so predictable. Everything you can, if you've ever seen a rom-com before, you know exactly where this film's gonna go. You know exactly how it's gonna end. You know exactly what the main character's gonna do. They're gonna have a falling out, then they're going to recover, and they're gonna be best of mates and happy by the end. That's not spoilers. You know exactly what this film is. That's a problem. Yeah. So it's not a bad film. For what it is, I think it is more enjoyable than it should be, but it's not all that unique. There probably are better things in cinemas to watch. 2018's Halloween. So Halloween, this one is a sequel to the original Halloween, ignoring all the ones that came after that. It's a fun slasher movie, full of good horror moments, some comedy in there, but it's totally out of place, I think. It doesn't know if this film wants to be funny, it doesn't know if it wants to be a spoof, and it doesn't know if it wants to be a horror, if it doesn't want to be serious. So that's a problem. So this is like, what, 30, 40 years after the original Halloween? I can't remember. What was the original Halloween? 78. So yeah, 4 years after the original Halloween. So Michael Myers being transferred to another prison. Meanwhile, Laurie Strode has been preparing for his arrival or his return all these years. She's built out her house, got traps and security devices all over the place. She's got guns at the ready. Jamie Lee Curtis is brilliant in this film. She's very much a Sarah Connor version of her character. So not all that original, but yeah, this is a by-the-book slasher film. It's just a really good, well-made slasher film. But the problem is, we've all seen slasher films. We all know what's going to happen. You can totally see, right from the word go, which characters are going to die before the end. And yeah, it doesn't make it any less enjoyable, though. Because, again, it's just a really well-done slasher movie. Not that scary, though. And I think that's because tonally it doesn't quite know what it wants to be. It doesn't know if it wants to be a comedy. It doesn't know if it wants to be a horror or a spoof. So yeah, if you like slasher movies, if you like the Halloween movies, I do think this is one of the better ones, and I do recommend it. Bohemian Rhapsody. So, Bohemian Rhapsody, when it first came out, there's all the controversy surrounding Bryan Singer, the director. I didn't want to support this film by seeing this, but at the end of the day, I chose to watch it anyway. Rami Malek is Freddie Mercury. This is a film about Freddie Mercury, about Queen, but the problem is, it's about both of them. It doesn't know if it wants to focus on Freddie Mercury, it doesn't know if it wants to focus on Queen, it doesn't know if it wants to be a celebration of the music. It's about so many different things that none of these individual things get fleshed out or developed or looked at in much depth. So that's one of the big problems. The other big problem, the one that I really didn't like, is that it changes events of history. Now, it doesn't just change the order of events. It doesn't just say, oh, this happened like this and it didn't happen the way you think and all that lot. It's changing significant moments and giving them different meanings, different purposes for existence. So, without going into details and spoilers, Freddie Mercury and when he got AIDS, completely different in this film from what happened in real life. Live Aid, completely different from what happened in real life. And I've got a problem with that because these are such huge, important moments and events, particularly Live Aid, that by changing these events, you're basically lying to us and treating the audience as if we're stupid. And they're not that long ago. So, yeah, I got a big problem with that. You can look at my full review where I go into much more detail about it and explain why that is. So, this is a biopic at its heart. It's a pretty decent biopic, but again, because it doesn't know what the focus is, it doesn't go into much detail. There are certain things where would really like to know certain details and information, but it just never really goes there. It's almost as if it never had that information to go on. So, had the film at the start said this is based on true events, but we're changing things for dramatization, I'd be totally fine with some of the stuff that happens. But it doesn't do that. Instead, you go in having to put your trust into this film that it's being as honest and truthful as it possibly can be, and it just turns out it's not. So, yeah, I have problems with this film. But yeah, Rami Malek, brilliant as Freddie Mercury. The story itself, ignoring the historical accuracy of it, it is a pretty decent biopic. It's just not a great one because it just lacks the depth. Fantastic Beasts: The Crimes of Grindelwald. So the sequel to the first Fantastic Beasts and the latest entry in the Harry Potter Wizarding World franchise. This is a little better than the first Fantastic Beasts, I'd say, but nowhere near as good as any of the Harry Potter movies. So the problem is that the film starts off with a really cool action scene and then ends with a really cool action scene, but everything in the middle, boring. It's full of characters, full of stories that just don't need to be there. And not only that, they're just not that interesting. I think this film would have worked really well as a novel or a book because J.K. Rowling could have really delved into the characters, could have developed them more, could have had their backstory, got a lot more details in there. But because it's a film, you can't do that. Film, you've only got the visuals and the auditory elements. In a novel, you can go into their mind and what they're thinking, their emotions, and so on. And JK tries to do that at times here. There's some awkward and odd moments when the characters just stop what they're doing and talk about what's going on. One really egregious example is towards the end of the film when all the characters are converging. They're in a hurry, they're trying to stop Grindelwald, the stakes are higher than ever, and then all of a sudden they just stop and they have like this big history lesson revealing why they're all related and what's going on, and it's just really odd, really awkward, really bizarre, while these two characters are having this huge moment which should be really revelatory and like, oh my god, but it's not, it's just bland because we didn't care about either of these characters beforehand. Then everyone else just stood around watching, it's really just bizarre. So that would have worked much better in a novel had the characters been developed leading up to that point. But yeah, the big problem with this is the characters. They're just not that interesting. The storyline isn't all that interesting either. It does set things up for the third film, and that's another problem with this, is that this film feels like it's setting things up for what's to come. Well, there's still 3 films to come. At what point do you stop setting things up and just say, right, this is it? So hopefully that is the next film. Hopefully it will hit the ground running. Really disappointed by this because I was looking forward to it. Also, Newt Scamander. I don't like him as a lead character. I think the performance is fine. I think the character itself is actually fine. I just don't think it should be the lead character. Reign of the Supermen. So I was really surprised by this movie. I watched the last one, The Death of Superman, and I was really just meh. Didn't do much for me. I'd seen that story before. I'd seen it told better before. And then I saw the trailers for this film and I thought, ooh, that's a corny idea about different versions of Superman coming, trying to work out where they came from, who they are, what they're doing. So there's like a robotic Superman, there's Superboy, there's a one that looks almost identical to Superman, but he's got a visor on, and there's one that's like fully armored, and The idea of this film is cheesy, it's corny, it's ridiculous and silly. So I didn't want to watch this film based on the trailers. So I didn't get this film when it came out. Then it was added to Amazon Prime, and I thought, you know what, it's on there, I might as well give it a go. It's surprisingly good. I really enjoyed this movie, and I was really just taken aback by how much I liked it. So, yes, the central premise is silly still. You've kind of got to overlook that. But it's full of great characters. Rainn Wilson returns as Lex Luthor. He's now one of my favourite depictions of Lex Luthor. I think he's great. Superboy's in there. It's a character I've been aware of but never really knew much about. So I'm now really interested in that character. It does a good job with that version of Superman in particular. It's just a really good, fun action movie. There's a moment when they try to explain why the Justice League isn't in there. The Justice League is in this film. I'm going to say that, but I'm trying to avoid spoilers. But it's so ridiculous in how they get rid of them, let's say. And I'm not going to go any more than that. It's just a ridiculous way how they've gotten rid of them so they can focus on the Superman. So, yeah, there are some things that you've kind of got to roll your eyes at and just kind of ignore and brush to the side. But it's a fun, animated action movie. And it does a good job of really diving into who Superman is, what makes Superman Superman. Captain Marvel. So, Captain Marvel, I would say a mid to upper tier Marvel movie, and that's pretty good because the Marvel movies are pretty good. Even the ones that aren't quite good are still pretty good. So, Captain Marvel, the latest Marvel movie set in the 90s, so before most of the others. The only one that's set before it is Captain America the Winter Soldier. Basically, Captain Marvel is a Kree warrior. She's destined to take down the Skrulls, this alien species who can change their appearance to match anything they see. So, I don't want to go into spoilers. I don't want to really say what this film's about. It has just came out. You can watch my full review when I go into much more detail. But I enjoyed it. It's not the best Marvel movie. It's not the worst Marvel movie. There's some great action scenes in there. Carol Danvers, Brie Larson is good, I would say, overall. The problem with this film is the structure. There are flashbacks throughout the movie, and the problem is she has amnesia. So from the beginning of the movie up to about halfway through the movie, she's just a blank slate. There's little reason to relate to her. There's little reason to care about her. Okay, I'm going to go into light spoilers here, but basically, she's already Captain Marvel at the beginning of the movie. But because of the amnesia, she just doesn't know it. She's had all the moments that make her a superhero, she just doesn't remember them happening. So that makes this film really odd structurally, and it means that she's kind of going through an origin story that she's already been through, and it feels like just an extra long, unnecessary origin story. Maybe if they rearranged the structure a bit, if they presented it in chronological order, maybe, then it would work better. But I don't know. Yeah, it's weird that way on, but it is fun, it is enjoyable, and it's a Marvel movie, so it's not that bad. You don't have to say it before Avengers Endgame unless you really want to know who Captain Marvel is, but yeah, it doesn't really tie into that movie at all. It kind of does the solo a Star Wars story thing of looking at these little things and saying, right, how did this happen? Let's give it some backstory. It's not entirely necessary, so light spoilers here again. The Tesseract is in this movie. We didn't really need to know what happened to the Tesseract, but it goes into that a bit more. And if anything, some of these things, it just brings up more questions. So that's a bit of a problem. But yeah, fun movie. Triple Frontier. Triple Frontier is about a group of soldiers who decide to rob this cartel boss. Let's just say things don't go to plan. So the first half of the movie, very different from the second half of the movie. The first half of the movie, very much a heist movie. All about the build-up, all about the actual heist itself. And then the second half of the movie is all about trying to get away with it and what happens afterwards. It's fun and enjoyable for the first half of the movie, but the second half, tonally very different movie altogether. There is a big surprising moment which took me off guard in the second half of the movie, which I won't get into. You can watch my full review where I go into that. But yeah, it's fine. It's a perfectly fine action heist movie. I did really enjoy the first half. The second half's not bad by any means. It's just different. And yeah, check that out if you're interested. It's well worth checking out, I think. Final film for today is The Girl in the Spider's Web. So, The Girl in the Spider's Web is a reboot of the American Girl with the Dragon Tattoo series, but it's based on the fourth book in the series, so therefore it's kind of also a sequel to the original three Swedish films. But it stars new actors, new characters. And yeah, a weird way to do a reboot because this film does not at all explain who any of the characters are. You have to go into it knowing who these characters are. So if you don't know who Elizabeth Salander is, if you don't know who Mikael Blomkvist is, this film does not explain that at all. Yeah, you can get a vague idea of who they are. You know that Mikael Blomkvist, for example, is a journalist. You know that Elizabeth is a kind of a vigilante now and a hacker. But that's all the film really says about them. That's all the film introduces about them. So I do recommend you watch the three original Swedish films to find out who they are, what's gone on in their past, why they're related. At the very least, you want to watch the Girl with the Dragon Tattoo, the David Fincher version. But I do recommend the Swedish ones over that. I love the Swedish films. So, yeah, I'm just pointing that out. So, this film, what it's about, basically, I don't want to go into spoilers. If you've seen the trailers for this film, don't see the trailers. Just don't. The trailers for this film spoil this film completely. There are certain reveals in the trailers which are meant to be big surprising moments in this film. And because I saw the trailers, those moments in the film just completely fell flat. So I'm going to try to avoid spoilers here and trying to explain what this film is about. Basically, Lisbeth Salander is hired by someone who works for the government in some way or form, and he's got this. I don't even know what the correct word is, but basically, there's this. Yeah, I don't even know how to describe it, but it's to do with computer hacking. He wants her to hack into the NSA and steal a program or something that he made. Yeah, then the film kind of evolves from there. So she ends up having the NSA hunting her down. She ends up having other people hunting her down who want this program or whatever it is. And yeah, meanwhile, Mikael Blomkvist gets involved trying to help her out. Yeah, I don't want to spoil this at all, so I can't really say what the specifics of it all is. But the problem I had with this film is that it's taken this franchise in what was like a thriller mystery kind of franchise and more drama than anything else, and it's now full on action thriller. And it just feels like this isn't quite what the series was. So it's not a bad thing exactly because it is a very fun and enjoyable film. There are some really good action moments in there. Cinematography is beautiful. It's really well directed. Fede Alvarez is the director. I think he'd make a good James Bond film based on what I've seen here. But this feels, it looks and tonally it's a lot like the previous movies, but it feels like it's from a different series. So I did enjoy it overall, but compared to the others, it's not that good. So yeah, that's a bit disappointing. But Claire Foy's great. I just think they should have went a bit further with her. They should have gave her the full mohawk. Clearly, she just didn't want to shave her head or anything like that. But Mikael Blomkvist, I don't have a clue what's happened to his character. Mikael Blomkvist, very much one of the main characters. They're kind of cool lead characters in the first three films and books. But in this, he just kind of pops up and he's just kind of there for most of it. He never really does much of anything. So it's really weird. But yeah, that's The Girl in the Spider's Web, and that's all the films I've watched this year. So if you've liked this, let me know, and I'll do more later in the year when I've watched more. But I'm Grant Burton. Follow me on Twitter and Instagram at @the_Grant Burton. Subscribe to my channel, give me a thumbs up, leave comments and feedback down below. Let me know what you thought of this video. Let me know what you thought of all the films I've talked about here today. And until next time, thanks for watching.